Anastasia Kriegel, also known as Anna Kriegel, was born on February 18, 2004, in the industrial city of Novokuznetsk, located in Siberia. She spent the first few years of her life in an orphanage. On August 10, 2006, the girl was adopted by a foreign couple. Anna's adoptive parents were Geraldine Kriegel and her husband, Patrick Kriegel, who were originally from France but had been living in Ireland. The Kriegel family had a successful and stable life. Geraldine worked as a senior manager in the legal department of a major Irish transport company, while Patrick was a French language teacher in Dublin. At some point, the man stepped back from his usual activities and dedicated a large part of his free time to raising his daughter. Although neither of Anna's parents had cultural ties to her native country and the place where she was born, they both made considerable efforts to ensure that she did not lose touch with her roots. Perhaps for this reason, they did not change the girl's name. The love that Geraldine and Patrick felt for their daughter was all-encompassing and mutual. According to the woman, Anna would come to their room every evening to wish them good night and tell them how much she loved them. Despite growing up in a household with a favorable atmosphere, the girl still faced certain difficulties. The problems began at an early age, with side effects related to various medical procedures she had to undergo in childhood, leading to certain complications later on. The first bad news came when doctors discovered a tumor in the girl's right ear. Anna had to undergo a 5-hour surgical operation. As a result, the tumor was removed, and the doctors seemed to think that everything had gone well. However, it was later discovered that due to the intervention, the girl had partially lost her hearing. In addition, a very noticeable scar from the surgery remained at the back of her head. This was in addition to another injury the girl had suffered some time ago when she had stumbled during a run and hit her chin hard in the fall. According to Geraldine, Anna always looked older than her years, which she attributed to the girl's genetics. The woman was convinced that women in Siberia usually grow up faster. In fact, Anna's maturation process was so rapid that even as she entered adolescence, she began to experience muscle and bone pains. This is not an uncommon phenomenon and is often associated with the fact that the muscles and bones of teenagers grow at different rates. Despite this, Anna's adoptive parents described her as a happy and cheerful girl. They always noted her beautiful singing voice, and the girl even wanted to learn to play the guitar. Her interest in music was evident, as she would always take her beloved blue headphones with her when going out. However, her main passion was dancing, and she could spend hours in her room listening to music and practicing various movements she had observed in her dance group. In addition, the girl was active on social media, often posting videos of her dancing and singing, although she had only around 100 subscribers. Nevertheless, she often received abusive comments directed at her. Some users even went so far as to suggest that she should harm herself. Her appearance was one of the main reasons for the bullying by her classmates. Her tall stature and physique caused her more suffering than pride. However, thanks to her abilities and endurance, Anna became an excellent swimmer. Over time, the first signs of Anna's deteriorating health began to appear. Shortly before finishing elementary school, she sought support from one of her teachers for the first time, confessing that she had been having thoughts of death. Anna's adoptive parents were distressed by this fact. They feared that the situation could worsen in high school, and for this reason, they decided to meet with the school administration that Anna was to attend. They wanted the staff to be aware of the situation and in some way help. When the girl was in the classroom, she could feel safe, but outside of it, the bullying continued. Many of those who harassed Anna had started doing so even before the start of the school year. The cruelest things happened during the summer holidays. Older boys who were a few years older would send her inappropriate messages, and the girl was also the target of harassment on her social media accounts. This was something Anna faced most often, largely due to her unusual appearance. At the age of 13, she was 1.73 meters tall, and according to Geraldine, her daughter could have passed for an 18-year-old. The most audacious teenagers sometimes cross the line between emotional and physical abuse. One such incident occurred on Halloween night when she left a teenage disco. A group of boys around her age started following her. One of them repeatedly offered to go with her into the bushes, constantly grabbing her by the arms. The next day, the girl's parents reported the incident to the police, but the boy was only given a warning. It's worth noting that Anna's height was the reason for the mockery by her classmates. They also pointed out that she was an adopted daughter, saying that her parents were fake. Several times, Geraldine and Patrick showed the school administration the offensive messages their daughter was receiving. It's difficult to say how the school representatives reacted, but the situation was never resolved. Anna was a sensitive girl. While she could appear happy in everyday life, there was always a storm raging inside her, according to Patrick. His daughter was disappointed in other people. She tried to get along with the other children, but they constantly rejected her, which affected her self-esteem. Anna said she was afraid to discuss her feelings, fearing it would become another topic of mockery. Essentially, the girl was a normal teenager who needed to enjoy her youth, but instead, she had to be afraid of her peers. This fear literally enveloped her. As a result, her behavior changed. Her parents noticed that Anna became anxious in high school. She participated in several fights and was suspended from classes several times. At one point, she even applied makeup to her eyes, trying to imitate bruises. Moreover, she posted messages on her social media accounts, making them more horrific than the ones she received from her classmates. Soon, Geraldine found out about this, and the woman demanded that her daughter give her access to all her accounts and provide the unlock code for her mobile phone. Since then, she regularly gave her phone to her parents for checking, and during one of the checks, Geraldine found a strange photograph of her daughter. In the photo, Anna was tied to a chair and was sitting with her eyes closed. According to the teenager, this was a joke photo. Nevertheless, the girl's emotional stability was increasing, and her self-esteem was severely damaged. Anna reached the point where she inflicted self-harm using scissors. At this critical moment, her parents decided it was time to seek help. First, they contacted the local branch of a volunteer organization that dealt with supporting young people in difficult life situations. However, their employees rejected the application of Anna's parents, as they learned about the incident of self-harm and redirected the girl to their colleagues who specialized in helping people who had committed acts of aggression towards themselves. After Anna went through 6 stages of therapy, Geraldine and Patrick reapplied on behalf of their daughter to the first organization. As a result, she was accepted, and during her visits to these places, Anna regained stability. Moreover, she managed to make friends with other teenagers who were experiencing similar feelings and found themselves in similar situations. It seemed that Anna's mental health had finally improved, but the peace of mind of her parents was short-lived. They found themselves caught up in the most terrible nightmare they could ever face. By May 2018, the life of the 14-year-old Anna in the family home in the suburbs of Dublin was relatively normal. True, she was unable to achieve success in her studies. She was not a stupid child, but studying in English became a challenge for her, according to Geraldine. This significantly set her back in education. Moreover, the situation was exacerbated by a deterioration in her hearing caused by an operation. The subjects in which they had to remember many different terms and concepts were the most difficult, which is why on Sunday, May 13, 2018, the day before the exams, Geraldine offered to help her daughter study. It was morning when mom and daughter were getting ready to sit down and study the course material. 15 minutes later, Anna remembered that she and her parents had a family gathering planned for that day. As a result, she and Geraldine decided to devote their time to watching movies. In turn, Patrick ordered pizza and made popcorn. Anna didn't like the pizza and decided to run to the Chinese restaurant that was near their house, while her parents' guests were drinking in the living room. Anna and one of her cousins locked themselves in the room. They danced and recorded videos, which was their favorite activity. The gathering ended early when the guests left. Anna went to her parents' room to wish them good night, and before going to bed, she asked her mom to wake her up early in the morning so they could say goodbye before she left for work. Early in the morning on May 14th, the girl asked Geraldine to write her a note that she needed in order to leave school early and make it to a therapy session at the family home. The morning went as usual. Geraldine went to work, Anna went to school, and Patrick stayed home and went about his usual business. Around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the doorbell rang. Patrick opened the door and saw a boy about the same age as Anna in front of him. The teenager, hereinafter referred to as Boy B, was from a respectable family and had previously done well in school, with academic performance far exceeding that of his peers. However, with the onset of adolescence, his enthusiasm for studies began to wane. Although he was skilled with his hands and had a great affinity for modern technology, he had no interest in social media and was indifferent to mobile phones. According to his close ones, the boy had few friends. He did not engage in much activity and was more often found in the company of younger children. Instead of going out, he preferred to stay home and watch anime. Anna was acquainted with Boy B, as they went to the same school. When the girl approached the door, she told her father that she did not know why he had come to her. Nevertheless, she greeted him, and then the two teenagers went outside. They wanted to talk to each other in a way that Patrick couldn't overhear. After a few minutes, Anna returned to the house and ran to her room. She put on a black hoodie with white print on the sleeves, which her mom had given her, and leather pants. Then the girl came back down and, with a wide smile on her face, assured her father that she would be back soon. Patrick, for some reason, did not ask his daughter where she would be going. However, when he peeked out onto the neighboring street, he noticed the teenagers heading towards Santa Catalina Park. That same day, Geraldine returned from Dublin earlier than usual. Upon her return home, she immediately learned about the news that shocked her. Patrick told her about Boy B and that Anna had gone for a walk with him. Geraldine's concern was quite justified, as in the past the girl had been subjected to harassment by other teenagers. The woman knew who Boy B was, and it was this knowledge that worried her. After a while, after returning, Geraldine sent her daughter a message asking her to come home immediately. Without receiving a response, she wrote a new message in which the woman threatened the girl, saying that if she was not home soon, she would call the police. Geraldine's maternal instinct kicked in. She understood that she was behaving like a paranoid and obsessive mother. However, her concern for her daughter prompted her to go out and search for her. After surveying the area of Santa Park, Geraldine did not see anyone except people walking their dogs. After dinner, she went out again, this time using her car, hoping that her daughter had gone for a walk on her usual route. With each passing minute, the woman's anxiety increased, as the boy B was not close to Anna. Geraldine had never met his parents and did not even know his home address. She called the parents of other students in an attempt to get this information, but she reached a dead end, as none of her acquaintances had the teenager's address or phone number. Completely desperate, Anna's parents turned to their old friend, retired Detective John Criven. He advised them to immediately go to the police station. The authorities took the complaint, but tried to reassure Geraldine and Patrick. They stated that in this part of Ireland, the police often received reports of missing teenagers, and in most cases, the latter appeared within a few hours of disappearance. Nevertheless, Geraldine insisted that such behavior was unusual for her daughter. The officers did not consider the situation alarming, but nevertheless, they went to search for Anna. First, the police officers found out the address of the boy B. When the police came to his house, he said that he had indeed been walking with Anna. According to him, he last saw her in Santa Catalina Park around 6 p.m. on the early morning of May 15, 2018. Without receiving any information from their daughter, Geraldine and Patrick began their own search, focused in the area of the previously mentioned park and its surroundings. They questioned every passerby, but no one reported seeing the girl. As a result, the police officers began an official investigation into Anna's disappearance. They returned to the boy B's house, and this time the conversation with the teenager was led by Sergeant John Dan. Thanks to his questions, some details of what had happened began to emerge. According to the new testimony, the boy B came to the girl's house at the request of one of his friends, whom I will call Boy A. Unlike B, it was born in a wealthy family, although he had never shown any symptoms of any mental disorder. His parents described him as a strange and peculiar child. He exhibited an unusual interest in horror films. In addition, he spent a lot of time on the internet and played video games, many of which were violent and explicit. However, he never harmed those around him. The boy had an interest in the structure of the human body, according to the boy. Anna was allegedly in love with his friend, but this feeling was not mutual. The boy allegedly asked his friend to bring Anna to the park so they could talk. After some time, the sergeant took the teenager to the park so that he could show him the route he had followed in the company of the missing person. The sergeant was primarily interested in the place where the teenager had last seen Anna. The police officer marked this information on a map, then released the teenager to go home. The authorities then issued a public statement describing Anna's physical characteristics. Soon the police began receiving potential leads on the girl's whereabouts, each of which was carefully examined. Some were close to the truth, while others led the investigators into a dead end. While searching the railway tracks near the park, Sergeant Dan encountered a man walking in the area with his son. The man said he had seen the news about Anna's disappearance and mentioned that teenagers of the missing girl's age often congregated in that area. The authorities decided that the two underage boys were key witnesses in the case. Eventually, the police went to the home of the boy, A, to question him. Sergeant Dan realized that the boy, A, and his father were the same people he had previously spoken to near the railway tracks. After a few hours, the police took the two boys to the park to retrace the route they had taken on the day of Anna's disappearance. The path they followed ended near an off-road bicycle racing track, and at that moment the sergeant observed a conspiratorial exchange of glances between the teenagers, which led him to believe they were hiding something important. Subsequently, new details emerged in Boy B's version of events that were not present in his initial account. Ultimately, the police brought the teenagers and their parents to the station. Boy B, as he had stated earlier, claimed that after he had left Anna in the company of his friend, he had heard nothing more about her and did not suspect that anything bad had happened to her. In turn, the boy A provided an incredibly detailed report of his movements that day. He explained that Boy B was one of his closest friends and that they had agreed to meet in the park that day. According to him, he did not know that his friend would bring Anna, who was madly in love with him. Once before, she had invited him on a date, but he had refused. The same thing happened this time as well. Allegedly, after these words, Anna turned around and left without saying a word. The police officers noticed that Boy A had injuries on his hands and face. They questioned him about this, and he explained that after Anna left him alone, he went for a walk. According to him, during the walk, he was attacked by two men who knocked him to the ground and kicked him several times. The story seemed quite logical. However, the teenager provided several new details. He claimed that he managed to get up and kick one of the attackers in the head. This part of the story sounded like his fantasy. To confirm or refute this account, the officers continued to question the teenager. The description of the alleged attackers made by Boy A allowed the authorities to create their photo fit. Taking the image of the criminals, the investigators re-interviewed people who were in the park on the day of Anna's disappearance. Those who were questioned did not recognize the attackers. Finally, the police took a sample of the mud from the teenager's boots and took his mobile phone. On Wednesday, May 16, 2018, Inspector Mark O'Neill led the investigation. The assumption that Anna had simply disappeared was quickly replaced by the hypothesis of a possible crime. Employees of various departments were involved in the search operation. They were tasked with thoroughly combing the park area, as well as all possible remote areas, ditches, and bushes. During the inspection of the territory, the police came to an abandoned house known in the area as Glen Viendy House. Built in the 19th century, the residence had been uninhabited since the late 20th century. Local residents considered this building to be ruins due to its remoteness and neglect. This was a place where teenagers came to hide from the eyes of adults. The territory inside the house, as well as the outside, was littered with garbage. As the police entered the house, they split up. Some examined the main space, while others explored a room at the end of one of the main corridors. The windows of this room were boarded up with boards, but light still penetrated through. Eventually, one of the police officers was able to discern a human figure there. It was the lifeless body of a woman, her face covered by her hair. It soon became clear that it was Anna. On her neck was a piece of tape from under which her fingers were protruding. Apparently, she had tried to tear it off to prevent suffocation. The girl was naked, the only article of clothing on her body being black stockings. After a brief inspection of the room, the police officers found the rest of the victim's clothing. The bra and t-shirt were torn to shreds. Fragments of Anna's mobile phone casing were lying on the floor. Next to the victim's body, a stick and a brick with traces of blood were found. All of this indicated that terrible things had happened here. As a result, the investigation focused on the version of an abduction and murder on the orders of Inspector O'Neill. Experts and forensic scientists began to collect and analyze the evidence found at the crime scene. Anna's body was taken to the center for autopsy. The number of injuries on the girl shocked the pathologist. It took him more than 40 minutes to list all the areas of the body that had injuries, the most serious of which were on the head and neck. In addition, it was established that Anna had been induced to engage in intimacy, but it is not known whether this occurred before or after her death. In addition to the blood samples belonging to the victim, investigators found several fingerprints and traces of genetic material on her clothing, which made it possible to build a possible chronology of events. Presumably, Anna was attacked as soon as she found herself in this room, and when she fell to the ground, the attacker dealt her at least 4 blows with a brick. Despite the severe injury, the victim was still conscious and trying to escape. She dug her nails into the aggressor, and some of the artificial nails came off. Then Anna was dragged to the window, where she was induced to engage in intimacy, perhaps already dead by that point. Although there was no evidence at the crime scene pointing to boys A and B, the police officers summoned them for questioning again. However, they first decided to wait for the results of the analysis of the dirt samples taken from the boys' boots, and the forensic examination showed that Anna's blood was found on the teenager's boots. The contents of the teenager's mobile phone were also studied, and various disturbing photos, collections of horror films, and notes listing ways to inflict physical harm were found in it. The most alarming was the search history of the boy's browser, which showed that he had been studying information about abandoned places in the city. On May 23, 2018, a week after Anna's lifeless body was found in the ruins of an abandoned house, the police received a warrant for the arrest of the teenagers. The boys' parents were informed of when they needed to prepare them for transfer to the authorities. The entire process was confidential. The police arrived at the teenagers' homes in casual clothes and used unmarked vehicles to avoid attracting attention. The first boy was interrogated, with his father and lawyer present. His testimony was the same as before. Initially, the investigators showed the teenager videos from surveillance cameras, which they claimed showed 2 shadowy figures, and told them they could have been men who attacked him in the park. In reality, the police knew the figures on the footage were Anna and the boy. They then presented the teenager with evidence pointing to his involvement. The 13-year-old suspect responded evasively to questions and, on his lawyer's advice, refused to make any further comments. According to local laws, any statements made by the suspect had to be accepted, even if they did not correspond to the facts. The interrogation of the second boy also followed the same pattern as the night of Anna's disappearance. However, over 700 hours of footage from various surveillance cameras showed that the route he claimed to have taken in the park did not match reality. On the morning of May 26, 2018, the second boy changed his testimony. In his new statement, he said he had led Anna through the bike path, not the area of the park he had initially mentioned, and that boy had followed Anna into the abandoned house as the teenager was leaving the premises, at which point he claimed to have heard a scream. The boy B did not speak loudly. He assumed that someone had attacked Anna. As he was leaving, he thought that everything would be all right since his friend was there to protect Anna. He reported that he had lied in the first interrogation because he did not remember the route, but after allegedly recalling it, he did not change his testimony as he was afraid of appearing suspicious in the eyes of the police. When the teenager was shown the adhesive tape found at the crime scene, he immediately recognized it. Boy B claimed that he had given it to his friend a few days before the incident. After this confession, the teenager became more talkative and provided more and more new information in the new version of events. He said that after leaving Anna in the company of his friend, he decided to explore the ruins of the house. Hearing the girl scream, Boy B allegedly returned to the room and saw Boy A attacking Anna using a judo technique. According to him, the attacker was trying to strangle Anna and tear off her clothes at the same time. The girl was crying and desperately begging Boy A not to do this, but he did not stop. By the evening of May 26th, the authorities brought formal murder charges against Boy A, and his funeral took place. On Thursday, May 31st, 2018, the only thing the victim's parents asked the public to do was to make a donation to the Russian-Irish organization involved in the adoption processes, thanks to which they were able to take Anna into their family. The girl's coffin was decorated with a Russian flag and a small matryoshka doll, which referred to her origin. In addition, a small figure of the Eiffel Tower was placed on the coffin, as a trip to Paris was the girl's favorite pastime. After the burial, the investigation of her death continued. The charges brought against Boy allowed the police to obtain a search warrant for the teenager's house and room, where various evidence was found that strengthened the existing suspicions against the accused. The authorities found a bag containing what was later called a killer's kit, a handmade leather mask, a skull, knee pads, elbow guards, gloves, and something resembling a scarf and a net. As a result of the examination, Anna's blood was found on each of these items. Another find was 2 mobile phones, which collectively contained more than 12,000 adult images, most of which depicted men with closed eyes strangling naked women. Examining the browsing history of these devices, investigators found that the teenager regularly visited so-called adult websites, usually attracted to videos featuring Russian girls, some of whom were named Anastasia. Over time, the evidence against the teenager continued to accumulate. First, a person walking in the park claimed to have seen the accused not far from the abandoned house on the day of Anna's disappearance. Then there were the testimonies of the boy's classmate. According to him, the accused behaved strangely for several days after Anna's disappearance. Furthermore, the investigators received the results of the analysis of the genetic material found on the victim's clothing, which, when compared to the DNA sample taken from the accused, matched. This allowed the charges against the 13-year-old teenager to be expanded, and he was now also accused of coercion into intimacy under aggravating circumstances. Since then, the teenager has been interrogated at least 3 more times, as the investigators tried to obtain more information about the day of the crime. When the crime occurred, the boy B made a new statement. He explained that at one time he and the boy A were close friends. However, recently they had quarreled and eventually drifted apart. According to him, he had stopped trusting the boy A, who had always seemed strange to him, and he was afraid of him, although he did not understand what his fear was connected with. According to the available data, a month before the attack on Anna, there was a conversation between the school children, during which the boy A asked his friend if he wanted to end someone's life. The boy B did not take these words seriously. Nevertheless, he inquired of his friend about whom he was talking about, and the latter allegedly replied that he would like to eliminate Anna. Even after this statement, the boy B did not believe that his friend could really do it. The teenager did not suspect that this was his goal when he asked the girl to go to the abandoned house. Even while watching the boy A commit the cruel crime, the boy B could not believe what was happening. According to his words, the fear he experienced at that moment paralyzed him, and despite the desire to help Anna, he was unable to move and simply watched. Although, based on the teenager's words, his participation in the crime was not direct, he was still arrested. To obtain permission to stay at home pending trial, the accused parents had to file a petition with the Supreme Court. On August 2, 2018, both boys were released on bail. This decision was facilitated by the age of the offenders, who were 13 years old. Due to the abundance of forensic and visual evidence, the process of transferring the case to court did not proceed as usual. In particular, the ban on the attendance of ordinary citizens at the process was changed. In addition, separate rooms were organized for the families of the accused, that they could rest and communicate with their lawyers face-to-face. After each hour of the trial, a 15-minute break was provided. This was intended to reduce the fatigue of the adolescents. The judges were ordered not to wear wigs and robes that they wore during the sessions, as the authorities considered that such an image of the judges could frighten the juvenile offenders. The composition of the jury was also changed for this trial. A new group was formed consisting of 8 men and 4 women. All of them were informed about the prohibition on disclosing the identity of the accused. The lawyers of the boy B demanded that the judges hold 2 separate trials. In their opinion, the testimony of the boy B could be taken out of context and used against their client. However, Judge Paul McDermott, who was to preside over the trial, rejected this request. He felt that the separation of the cases would not allow the jury to see the complete picture of what happened. The lawyers representing the boy B demanded that their client be interviewed by experts specializing in childhood trauma. At the beginning of 2019, a psychologist diagnosed the teenager with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. The presence of this disorder explained why the boy B had lied during his initial statement, according to the experts. His lie was caused not by a sense of guilt, but by the severe trauma he had experienced as a witness to the crime. Although the initial plan of the teenager's lawyers was for the specialist to testify in his defense, in reality, they could have harmed him. One of the psychologists admitted that the subject had disclosed information that he had not previously reported to the police. This did not exclude the possibility that the disclosure of this data in court would give the lawyer of boy A the opportunity to use it for the defense of his client. Usually, preparation for a trial takes 18 to 24 months. But as I mentioned earlier, in this case, the process was greatly accelerated. The first hearing took place in April 2019. Geraldine Patrick and the parents of the teenagers were present in the courtroom, standing next to their children. As the sessions continued, the representatives of the defendants became increasingly concerned. A turning point for the mother of boy B was the stage when her son spoke about the bath, in particular, how she was dressed, which seemed provocative to him. The expressions on the faces of Anna's parents and the parents of the accused showed the pain they were experiencing. Listening to the reconstruction of the events, the amount of detail provided by the boy B during his testimony caused shock among all those present in the courtroom. Witnesses were called to testify literally every day throughout the entire trial. All the above-mentioned evidence of the defendant's involvement was provided, and a few digital maps created based on satellite imagery were also added, indicating the Santa Catalina Park area, where Anna was last seen. A team of forensic technology specialists from the National Bureau of Forensic Examination built a 3D model of the exterior and interior of the Glen Viendy house, on which the location where Anna's body was found was marked. The jury was provided with actual crime scene photographs depicting the victim and the murder weapon. The defense for the boy B decided that it would be appropriate to invite a psychologist who, along with his colleagues, would provide an independent assessment of the teenager's mental health. The expert stated that the boy B was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of what he witnessed on the day of the crime. Additionally, the boy's lawyer presented his client's school questionnaire, which was filled out some time before the attack on Anna. In it, he characterized the boy A as someone who liked to watch horror movies and spend time in abandoned places, and described him as a strange person who had repeatedly mentioned different forms of aggression and Satanism. The judge ultimately decided that this information could not be used as evidence by either side. Soon, the jury gathered to begin deliberating on their decision. On July 15, 2019, the final court session was held before the verdict was announced. Judge Paul McDermott thanked the jurors for their work throughout the entire process. Ultimately, Boy A was found guilty of murder and aggravated sexual assault. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 12 years. Boy B was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 15 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 8 years. After learning of the sentences, the parents of the teenagers embraced their children. The father of Boy B, Benny, was unable to control his emotions and burst out in anger, and was even removed from the courtroom. However, he was later allowed to return. Geraldine and Patrick, on the other hand, quietly cried after the trial concluded. They publicly spoke about the immense pain they experienced due to the loss of their daughter. They stated that no sentence for the guilty parties could compensate for Anna's death. The precise reasons why the two 30-year-olds committed this cruel act against Anna remain unknown. Some people speculate that the girl became a victim simply because she was different. This horrific crime not only ended Anna's life and left her parents devastated, but also resulted in the convicted boys becoming the youngest individuals ever to be sentenced for murder in Ireland. Despite the brutality of their actions, the country's laws do not allow their identities to be revealed.